Brought to you by Purdue University, the only university on Fast Company's Brands That Matter list. 4 years running. Honored as a heritage brand, Purdue pushes innovation and partnership to make a consequential impact on the world. Learn more at purdue.edu/partner with us. Brought to you by Williams. We make clean energy happen.
I'm Yasmin Gagne.
I'm Josh Christensen.
And this is Most Innovative Companies. On today's episode, platformers Casey Newton on how Grindr is now going to start selling ED medication.
From Grindr's perspective, all they have to do is sort of roll out the front door, get the business partnership, do the branding, and then wait for the money to roll in.
Co-founder and president of LTK, Amber Venz Box.
If you had 100,000 impressions in January, you ended the year with about 25,000 impressions per post.
And as always, keeping tabs.
Expecting our celebrities to dictate our politics is like how we got into this mess in the first place.
But first, here's the download. The news you need to know this week in the world of business and innovation.
Inflation ticked down to 2.3% in April, the lowest it's been since February 2021. But economists warn that the effects of the Trump administration's tariffs will likely cause a jump in inflation starting next month. And speaking of tariffs, the U.S. and China reached a deal of sorts on Monday to pause tariffs, at least the most extreme aspects of those tariffs, for 90 days.
Everything's paused for 90 days all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with the 90-day thing. It seems like a random number. Well, I guess it's not a random number. It's 3 months. It's 1 quarter. No, this makes sense now. Everything makes sense.
3 months, 1 quarter.
Yeah,
Some
I got
great work from you.
Boom. Boom. Got it? Understand it? The U.S. said it would lower its tariff rate on goods from China from 145%. I can never say that number without laughing.
Yeah, because it sounds crazy.
Because it's so ridiculous. It's also like, why not just go to 150?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Do you have the balls to go to 150?
You already made up a
Sack
reason
up,
for
man.
this.
That number is now going down to 30%, and China would lower their rate on U.S. goods to 10%. The de-escalation in the trade war was reflected on Wall Street, with stock markets rallying in response to the news, proving once again that the stock market is just all vibes, baby.
Well, speaking of vibes, despite beating earnings expectations for the first quarter, Microsoft announced it would be laying off 3% of its workforce, or approximately 6,000 employees. This is the largest layoff at the company since 2023, when it eliminated 10,000 jobs. Microsoft joins the likes of Amazon, Salesforce, and Meta, all of whom have trimmed headcount since the beginning of the year.
Oh, and breaking news, Perplexity said that they'd hire all 6,000 employees and buy Microsoft?
Randomly on Twitter just now.
My favorite joke now is just anytime something's up for sale, I'm just like, your Perplexity's going to buy it. Drive by Bed Bath & Beyond, Perplexity will buy it.
Arvind, come on the show.
Yeah, I want to talk to you. I want you to break some news on this show. Billy Evans has reportedly raised millions for a new startup called Heymanthus. Heymanthus is a diagnostics company that's planning to build a tool that can scan biological material like blood. Essentially, it's a blood testing company. So why is this notable? Who is Billy Evans? Why are you including this, Josh? Well, Billy Evans is the partner of Elizabeth Holmes. Holmes, as you'll remember, is currently serving 11 years in prison for committing fraud through her blood testing company, Theranos. What is happening? What is wrong with the VCs?
Except that in the New York Times article, they couldn't really find a VC or investor who invested in it, but they did find a guy who owns a bunch of tapas bars in Austin who did.
That makes sense.
It's not what's wrong with the VCs. It's who the fuck did you find to give you this money?
Yeah, I mean, I need more reporting on this. More to follow. Stay tuned to fastcompany.com.
Come on our show.
Yeah, and bring some tapas.
And bring some food.
I love tapas.
You famously love tapas.
I love tapas. Tiny plates, big guy, tiny plates.
Andrew Whitty, the CEO of United Health Group, abruptly stepped down from his role this week. Whitty, who will remain on as a senior advisor for his replacement, Stephen J. Helmsley, cited personal reasons for the move. After the fatal shooting of Brian Thompson, the CEO of its subsidiary company, United Healthcare, the company has been the subject of criticism around its practices, with its stock falling in the past year. This latest news caused a more than 17% drop in shares on Tuesday. The company also announced that it will not be issuing an annual outlook for 2025.
Man, I need to know why Whitty had to quitty. And finally,
I hope his goodbye party was litty. I hate me. I
Shudder.
hate me.
Thunder
Sorry, I
crash.
hate me so much.
That one was worse. Quiddy was bad.
That one was awful.
Liddy was pretty terrible. And finally, Trump signed an executive order Monday aimed at reducing the cost of prescription drugs in the U.S. The executive order calls for pharmaceutical companies to voluntarily lower the price that the U.S. pays for medication to be in line with what other countries pay. If the companies don't meet that in 30 days, the EO instructs RFK Jr. to explore a plan to force them to comply with the most favored nation's pricing. This is a more aggressive version of an executive order Trump issued in 2020 that was struck down by the courts. This order could face similar legal hurdles and is unlikely to have an immediate impact on drug prices, if in effect at all, despite the president's assertion that we would see 30 to 80% decline in costs almost immediately.
And that's the news you need to know today. Josh, is there any influencer or account that will persuade you to buy things? I know you bought the Jawser site, so I know you are easily swayed. I know you're easily swayed.
I don't think I'm the target market for most influencer marketing. And I don't know if there's particular influencer. I mostly just see like random pieces of clothing that I like. It doesn't really matter who the influencer is, though.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not necessarily following influencers and like, oh, what their product placement is going to get me to buy. I'm not like following Charlie D'Amelio and she's got some SponCon for a new...
It would be so funny if you were, though.
I don't think I am following Charlie D'Amelio on social media at all. But I mean, no shame to her. I heard she was very good in Anne Juliet. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have influencers that you like genuinely go to? Because you're more tapped into like fashion, makeup, those sorts of brands.
I'm not easily influenced by influencers that much. I will
Eyebrow
say,
threading influencers.
No, I have my one eyebrow expert, Jimena Garcia. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She has a great Instagram. But a while ago, like several years ago, Vanity Fair published a long piece about Australian mommy bloggers in Byron Bay, and I followed all of them. And unfortunately, they have like really nice clothes that are super expensive.
Yeah.
They'll be like, look, this sweater looks handmade, but it actually costs $9,000. And I'm always like, damn, that's nice.
You open up a tab to the Real, see if it's on there for
that's
sale.
That's exactly what I do.
You're like, oh, it's only $4,000 now. Well, we're talking about this because later on today's episode, Yaz is interviewing Amber Venz Box, who is the co-founder and president of LTK.
But first, most people know Grindr as a dating and hookup app for gay men. But its CEO, George Arison, is expanding the business to offer telemedicine services, letting users purchase ED medication on its platform. Casey Newton sat down with Arison and wrote about the company's future plans in our latest issue. Casey is the founder and editor of the newsletter Platformer, as well as the co-host of the weekly New York Times podcast Hard Fork. He joined us to tell us a little more about Grindr. Casey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, for your piece in the most recent issue of Fast Company, you spoke with the CEO of Grindr, George Arison. And before I even get to like his tenure at the company, seems like kind of an interesting guy. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, he's a character. You know, I've spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley talking to founders, and there's a kind of, template for somebody who goes to Stanford, graduates, spends a couple years working at Facebook, applies to Y Combinator, comes out and does their company that way. George is very different. George grew up in Georgia, the former Soviet Republic, and moved to this country as a teenager and just kind of like scrapped and fought his way up. Worked for a number of companies that were like tech companies, but not the kind of big consumer tech companies that most people use every day. And so when he arrived at Grindr, it was a bit of a leap for him, and it made him really interesting to talk to.
How did they find him? On Grindr.
Yeah.
I should be the CEO of Grindr.
He said he was looking for right now to be a CEO, and they said, hey, we actually have a job. And so it was really, really worked out.
Damn, I feel like that's male privilege. If I did that, they'd be like, shut up, girl. So he started the job in 2022, right before the company went public. First of all, had he ever taken a company public before? And also, tell us how Grindr's fared under his leadership.
Yeah, well, so he was the CEO of Shift, the used car marketplace, and had been relatively successful there. And so I think the board had the confidence that he was the sort of leader who could take the company public. They were looking, I think, for a queer CEO, somebody who had credibility with the company, right? Like, you have to remember, this company had a very strange history. It was started by a gay guy, Joel Simkai, but then got bought by a Chinese company and was owned by a Chinese company for many years. And when, for sort of geopolitical reasons, the Chinese owner had to spin it off, it was run by a couple of straight guys. And I think for the board, they felt like this doesn't feel like the right leadership team to take this company public. And so when they looked around, George is one of the sort of very few, out queer men in tech, I think looked like a good bet.
I mean, I gotta say, we have Sam Altman, Peter Thiel. There may not be a ton of them, but they are very powerful.
Very high profile.
Yes, I mean, there is definitely like a bit of a queer mafia. It's like with very close overlap to the PayPal mafia.
Yeah.
It's sort of Tim Cook and it's Sam Altman, and then Peter Thiel isn't a CEO; he's like an investor. So it's like if you actually want to look at like the leadership ranks of public companies, right, I'm not sure that you would find more than like 3 or 4 out gay men.
So, first of all, I do love the idea of running a used car marketplace, and then Grindr is very funny to me. Yeah. Same vibe.
Yeah, everyone on Grindr is just one more banked up jalopy looking for a
That's exactly
new home.
it, yeah.
Mask for mask Honda Civic.
Exactly.
So, in terms of how the company's fared since going public, tell us a little bit about the sort of revenue picture. Tell us about the monthly average users. Give me all that.
Yeah, so I would say, particularly for a dating app, Grindr has done uncommonly well on the public market. They grew their revenue by 33% last year to $345 million. Their monthly users are up 7% to 14.2 million people, and about 1 million of them pay. And so as a result, Grindr's stock has been up about 70% over the past year, depending on what day you look at it.
And what is their revenue model? Like, what are people paying for?
It's a mix of ads and subscriptions for the most part. So ads is probably the biggest piece of that. That's how Grindr's been funded from the beginning.
I want to know who's advertising on Grindr.
Oh, well, I mean, for a long time, it was like the most like scummy, like unscrupulous ads in the entire world. Just like mobile games that stole your money. I mean, like just like truly horrible, horrible ads.
And now it's like Squarespace.
I think it's like maybe not quite Squarespace yet. Probably on their podcast, Squarespace is advertising.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they also have this like premium set of features where, increasingly many things that you might want to do on Grindr are behind some kind of paywall, or you can sort of do a little bit of it, but if you want more of it, you got to pay. So those are the two big things. And then, as of the publication of my story, they are now also in the telemedicine business.
So that's what we want to kind of get to next. I know Grindr calls itself, I have to read this, the global gayborhood in your pocket. But they're doing other stuff. It's not just, I love that people call it a dating app. I would say dating is a very loose term in this context. But tell us a little bit about them incorporating telemedicine services.
Yeah, so, as a public company, they have to find new avenues for growth. They have to have a story they can tell Wall Street. And I think subscriptions and ads just kind of wasn't a big enough story. And so they started thinking about, well, what else might gay guys be interested in? And they start getting really interested in telemedicine, in particular, erectile dysfunction, which is where they've started. They have this new service called Woodwork.
That's a great naming and branding.
So insane to me.
Well, I asked George, I said, what other, names did you try out before you settled on Woodwork? And he did say that Boner had been one of them, but that Woodwork tested better. So that's the one that they went with.
That doesn't surprise me.
Did they do the tech thing like Boner, but with no E in it?
Just no vowels, yeah.
Yeah,
BNR.
I don't know how they spelled it. But I mean, look, you have this company, Hims and Hers, which offers a sort of similar service. It's like you want these medicines that are maybe somewhat embarrassing to you for whatever reason, whether it's erectile dysfunction or hair loss. And so instead of going to a doctor and, maybe feeling uncomfortable during that process, you just go online and, you find a doctor who you don't have to look at in the eye and they say, hey, here's your prescription. And now, Hims and Hers is a public company and they're doing pretty well too. But as George pointed out, like Hims in particular is not for gay men. Like all of the branding is like very hetero focused. And so George was sort of like, gay men use ED drugs really differently than straight people do. Like we can maybe grab a piece of that market for ourselves.
How do they use them differently?
Well, for example, if you buy ED medicine through Grindr, you get a warning not to combine it with poppers, which is just not something that you would get in sort of your standard Hims package.
That's fair. I wrote a feature on Hims and Hers. This is obviously a long time ago now, I think. But what struck me as I was reporting it is, it is a massive logistical challenge. I mean, you have to have doctors or registered nurses practicing in every state because the laws are different around prescribing. How has Grindr figured out all of that?
They're working with a third-party provider. So, I mean, this is where I think it makes sense for them as a business is like they don't actually sort of have to do the hard part.
Got it.
My sense of how the medical provider part of this works is just that the doctors aren't very good and they don't care that much.
Yeah.
And that also makes it easier. But, for Grindr's perspective, all they have to do is sort of roll out the front door, get the business partnership, do the branding, and then wait for the money to roll in.
Are they thinking of ED meds as like a sort of subscription replenishment business?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, and I don't know that George quite said this in our interview, although, he came close, but a lot of gay men just use ED medicines recreationally, like it's sort of a fun weekend for them. Whereas a lot of straight guys are still thinking about it in terms of like, oh, like I have this terrible medical condition that I need treatment for. For gay guys, it's like, I'm going to Puerto Vallarta this weekend. I want Cialis or the generic equivalent. And so, Grindr is trying to position itself so it can deliver that.
That makes sense. I am curious, and I know this is potentially a stupid question, but the thing that I knew Grindr about, and this is like me revealing myself to be a straight woman a lot.
Problematic.
Yeah, problematic. They had like a couple of massive data breaches, right? That's like what I know them for mostly, in addition to having friends who use the app. And for them to have medical data seems like kind of a scary proposition for the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are going to have to sort of come to their own feelings about that. I think their biggest data breach had to do with HIV status. And that happened in the years, prior to George arriving, prior to the company going public. So I think Grindr would probably say, look, we're a very different company from when that happened. I think if people finding out that you take ED medicine would cause a crisis in your life, maybe Grindr is not the company that you want to get it from. But yeah, people just have very different kinds of feelings about that.
They started with ED meds. Are they looking at other sort of telemedicine opportunities?
My guess is that if Hims sells it, they will try to sell it too, particularly if they get some traction with the ED medication. I think hair loss is probably the next one, just sort of like targeting every man's insecurities one by one. So
GLP-1s.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I would not be surprised at all. Yeah.
Although imagine getting your Ozempic through Grindr. Just like so crazy to think about.
If the price is cheaper, then go for it. I mean, those compound medicines, I think Hims and Hers, they do like the compound version of GLP-1s, and it comes in a bit cheaper. Although
it's getting restricted right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's another thing. Pivoting away from the telemedicine part, we've covered dating app fatigue on this show a number of times, which is particularly true among Gen Z. I
don't think that's a Grindr problem. I'm going to be honest.
Well, I mean, that's my question. Is Grindr an exception?
Yeah, I mean, I asked this question of George as well, and his answer is basically, we don't see fatigue because we're not a traditional dating app. We're sort of filling a different spot in the market. In fact, it bothers him because he finds that the number one way that he loses customers is that they decide they want to go on a proper date and they feel like that's not something that they can do on Grindr. And I think, for the most part, that's probably true, at least kind of depending on where you live. I will say I have been to at least one wedding of two guys who met on Grindr, so it's not impossible, but
I love those guys.
It's not the norm. Yeah.
That's I feel like I want to go to.
Ted Sarandos famously said Netflix is competing with sleep. I feel like Grindr is in the same business.
I think it serves a very durable need. I mean, to me, like, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to write about Grindr, is that I have been shocked at how durable of a business it is. Like, having been there basically since the beginning, this app was very poorly made. I mean, you go back into the early 2010s and you would see guys' profiles and it would be like, sorry if I didn't get your message, I'm on Android. I mean, because like that's how often that sort of thing would happen. Again, the ads, they would crash your phone. But the thing thrived anyway, because it turned out that if you could just tell me instantly how close the other gay men were to me physically, that was like an asset that like had an almost incalculable value, right? And that basically remains true today. If you're a gay guy and you're traveling around, maybe you go to New York City for work and you have a night to yourself, of course you're going to look at Grindr, right? Who doesn't want to know if, maybe they're about to have the hottest night of their entire life? And so that just is an incredibly durable, valuable asset that like George and his team are trying to figure out, like, how do we nurture that and build the biggest possible version of, which I think is really interesting.
We touched on freemium features earlier, but tell us a bit about what kind of features are available on the free version and what do people pay extra for?
The core thing is if you open up the free version of Grindr, you'll be limited kind of in two ways. One is you'll just sort of see fewer people, so it'll show you a few dozen profiles, let's say. And it'll show you a mix of people that are online right now and people who were online like, 6 hours ago or something. And if you have shown up because you want to hook up, all the people who were online 6 hours ago are essentially worthless to you because, maybe they'll come back online looking for something, but maybe they're done for the day or the week or who knows. So if you pay for Grindr, all of a sudden, you can see many more profiles. You can set up various filters. So you can say, I only want to see people who are online right now, or I only want to see people within this certain age range, or I only want to see people with these certain attributes. And so those are some of the features that have sort of long been enabled as premium features. Now they're trying to explore more. They're trying to say, can we introduce new AI gizmos that'll make you want to pay? And they really kind of want to build out the rest of that subscription business.
Can we talk a little bit more about the AI features? Like, what did Arison have to say about that?
It's also every CEO. I mean, Whitney Wolford was in the Times this weekend, is claiming that they're going to, every dating app CEO is claiming the AI is going to change the game. What is Arison saying?
So their approach to AI overall is to build this feature called the Wingman. The Wingman will be powered by AI. And the Wingman is essentially a bunch of different features that they're grouping together, and they're sort of rolling them out one by one as they're ready. George is the first to admit not all of these things are ready, so they're trying to be very cautious about, how they roll it out. But we know one feature, for example, is like message summaries. So if you've had a very long back and forth with somebody and you don't have time to go back through the whole thing, Grindr will show you the executive summary so that you can get right back to business.
It can give you a Notebook LM podcast about it, maybe. I would listen to that.
I will say, I feel like my husband could really use that sometimes. He was like, you send too many texts in a row.
I need that for email chains here at work of people who don't make a Slack channel. Endless email chains on Outlook are the bane of my existence because I lose everything.
Yeah, totally.
I am curious about the AI Wingman feature. What does that look like?
Right now, it's kind of a suite of features that are generally rolling out. One that they showed me that they were pretty excited about is like recommendations for who to talk to. And those recommendations might include people that you've talked to previously. So like if you go to New York for work once or twice a year, maybe you go back that second time, you open up this part of the app and it says, oh, hey, here's Josh. You guys had an incredible night of passion the last time you were in town. Here was the conversation that you had. He's actually online right now, if you want to chat with him. So, if you're the sort of person on Grindr who's having conversation with dozens of people, which is, not impossible, that might be something that makes the app feel a little more useful to you.
Have they built it? I mean, AI obviously takes a lot of power and bandwidth, and the app has famously not been the most has not been the best tech, as you've mentioned before. Have they built out that part of their team? Is it just like a better infrastructure for incorporating new tech?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about these AI features is that you just have to build the front end because on the back end, it is just an API from a company like OpenAI or Anthropic. I believe George told me that at least for the moment, they're using the Anthropic APIs to run their AI Wingman feature. So, yeah, their job is to essentially build a product version around that, trying to focus on the things that AI is really good at today, and summarizing things actually is something that AI is pretty good at.
I can't imagine an AI wingman composing messages for you and you receiving like AI composed sex is so wild to me. You know what I mean? Like that particular use case seems crazy, but
Well, but wait, did you ever online date or did you meet your husband another way?
I met my husband in another way.
You met in an
Okay.
Uber, so in a way,
met in an Uber
that's sort
pool.
of a.
Oh, that's okay. Well, so that's very cute. Well, so if you didn't spend much time online dating, like I'm here to tell you, 95% of human interactions feel like bot interactions,
That's
right?
fair,
It's like,
that's
hi,
fair.
hi, how are you? Good, good. You, what are you up to? Not much. You, what are you doing this weekend? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
How about
yeah.
you? Right? So like the idea that a bot would just handle the first, 5 or 6 exchange does not seem crazy to me.
Yeah, that's fair. A friend of mine was like, yeah, I always shit on people's dating profiles and I had to write one up. And it's like, yeah, it turns out I love travel and books.
Yeah. Yeah, not so easy.
Strangely enough, I also love this Office quote. There's also like, think about as like a wingman, the literal analogy. Think about your dumbest friend. Would you rather have
I'm always
Grok or your dumbest friend?
my dumbest friend every time. There was a Gawker article way back in the day that claimed that like the best thing to send people is just "there she is" as a first line, and I think of that all the time. And
No, that is not the best thing to send.
No, it's not. I'll say this. It's not the best thing to say on Grindr.
I think that's a beautiful place to end this segment. Casey, thank you so much. We'll be back with Casey Newton for Keeping Tabs, but first, a quick break followed by my interview with co-founder and president of LTK, Amber Venz Box.
As affordable, reliable energy demand increases at historic rates, one company is uniquely positioned to accelerate America forward. Williams. We have 117 years of know-how in powering progress, and we're ready to power the next 100 years of innovation. Learn how our natural gas infrastructure is critical to the future of AI at williams.com.
There are roughly 200 million content creators globally, and the influencer marketing industry continues to grow at a staggering pace, with an estimated market size of $32 billion this year. Last year, social media actually became the world's largest advertising channel. LTK helps influencers connect with brands and make money from their followers. The company was co-founded by Amber Venz Box, who's also president and a content creator herself. I wanted to learn how the company is navigating major shifts in the social media landscape and where AI actually fits into its operations. Hey, Amber, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so excited to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Seemingly every creator I talk to and brands say they're seeing less and less ROI from their social posts, right? How do you think about that with your company?
So we launched in 2011, and at the time we were called Reward Style. And that's because we actually monetized blogs, and then it was Twitter at the time and Facebook. But mainly it was on blogs. And then we actually expanded in 2013 into the consumer side of our marketplace called LikeToKnow.
Do you call it LTK? That's what I call it.
It is
It is-
LTK.
okay.
With LikeToKnow, when you liked a
Yep.
photo, we'd send you the newsletter. And then, of course, have expanded since then.
So you launched LTK in 2013. Obviously, social media was a super different, I would argue, healthier place back then.
Social media has changed a lot in the last year specifically. So really from 2023 all the way through 2024, that was when we saw the largest transition from social media being a place to follow creators and be part of communities where you had control over your feed, to where 2024, Adam Mosseri came out in January and said, hey, this year, the majority of what you see is going to be recommended content. And we saw and felt that. So that was in January. If you had 100,000 impressions in January, you ended the year with about 25,000 impressions per post.
Oh my God.
His promises came true. This year, Adam came out and said, hey, majority of what you're going to see in your feed, by the way, it's going to be AI created. And for those of you who like stories, keep it with your best friends because this is no longer a distribution point. So a lot has shifted over the last year and a half.
I mean, that sounds like kind of a nightmare, I think, from your perspective, kind of running a business where the algorithm can change on a dime. How do you sort of, this is not the right way to put it, but kind of weatherproof your business, A, and also what are conversations like with creators around this?
One of the things that I think is like part of my job as being a founder is being a futurist. And I really think you have to look at all the players in the ecosystem, which, by the way, there's always people coming in and out. It's not consistent at all, but you're looking at those players saying what drives them, what motivates, what actions are they going to take, and then how do I prepare for that future? And in our case, it was seeing as early as, call it 2015, 2016, like, hey, their business is built on advertising. Our business is not built on that. And so like there's just incentives that are misaligned, right? Like you have to displace a piece of creator content in order to insert an ad. That was the beginning of us thinking, okay, we need to start like planning. Also with the rise of Snap, we saw that pretty quickly. We were seeing almost every 2 years the rise of a major scaled platform, which presented fragmentation risk for our creators. We also, during this time, saw consumers shift from desktop to mobile. So a lot has actually always been changing. It's a really dynamic industry. But we, around end of 2016, we were like, we have got to actually create a home base for our creators because when you play this tape forward, it's not great for our industry. And so 2016, we bought a small technology company out of New York that allowed us to get to an app faster. We augmented our team with that talent. And then by 2017, South by Southwest, we launched the LTK app. The app has come a really long way since that time. But what we did was create a home base that our creators could start building into so that that was where everything lived for them, where they house their community. And they could start using social media as a marketing platform. It's basically the world's greatest lead gen platform that's free, right? And if you treat it that way, then you're happy. But if you treat it like a place you need to be housing your community, you're going to be really sad every night.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, you mentioned scaled platforms coming up. Obviously, TikTok is here. You have some video shopping initiatives at LTK. I know video shopping is massively popular in Asia. How do you think about incorporating that with the app?
First of all, we introduced video to our platform 2017. Over the last 2 years, though, our creators have produced 300% more video. So videos is quickly becoming the largest content type on LTK, and it's the most important. We know that consumers really resonate with video. There's a higher trust with that. As a creator, I'm actually selling trust, ultimately. Like, I need to be in relationship with my followers, and video is the best way to do that. So we've seen our creators leaning into that a lot. We have actually totally rebuilt the app and relaunched it this year to be video first. So the tagline is now watch creators near you. Of course, you are getting the control that you always had where you're algorithm free, following all the creators that you follow, but you can actually now go in and see creators that are proximate to you, like in your zip code, fully near you, anywhere in the world, and also by major cities. And so it's become a really core component. With TikTok specifically, TikTokers were actually the first generation to be fully like disenfranchised for a minute. And then, of course, things came back, but they were able to feel firsthand what it meant to have your community like fully pulled. And that was what I call like more of a revolution. What we've seen on Instagram is more of an evolution, but either way you end up at the same place, which is you need a home base to own your audience. Our TikTokers got pretty serious about LTK at the end of last year. We saw a huge uptick and people setting up their LTKs, driving their community over. And that's still a really high volume right now because I think this generation just realizes how fragile it is to build on these platforms. And so I mentioned that because that has been also a huge driver of, I think, video on the platform is more creators are video first than ever before. And so you're seeing that kind of renaissance on LTK.
I'm curious, you mentioned that as an influencer, you are selling authenticity, you're selling trust. But I do think, consumers, especially compared to 2013, are way more savvy when it comes to sponsored content and advertising. And I'm curious, what are some of the ways, I guess, a creator can, stay authentic and also sell things? Like, when you're talking to creators, what are those conversations like?
Yeah. Well, a couple things with that. One is creators definitely don't win by like tricking people. They actually fully win by someone being successful. So if I, for example, take this lip gloss that I have on, I tell you it's Maybelline, you can get it at the drugstore, it's under $5 and it doesn't run down my face. I think you'll love it. And I'm wearing it today and you can see it on me. Then that's a high trust experience and someone is going to be successful when that shows up. Or I'll give you a better example. Mascara. If I tell you this mascara is tubing and it's not going to smudge on your face and it shows up and it does and it's total crap and it's flaky, you're never going to trust me ever again. And so that is sort of like a self-reinforcing thing for creators to actually be truly helpful and guide to the right things. This environment we're in this year specifically is so wild when it comes to trust because there's just a full lack of it across the internet. So when you're looking at like, for example, tens of thousands of AI creators across TikTok, when you're hearing Mark Zuckerberg say the vast majority of content you're going to see on his platform is going to be machine created, and then you think about, okay, well, those are super low trust things, right? Like they could all totally be fake. I mean, these are fake creators, right? And so being a human creator is actually like the human part is like a superpower and a differentiator. And so with the LTK app, like we're really the human app. Like if you want a human recommendation from like a real person, you're there. But I think this year is going to get really interesting from an advertising standpoint across social media platforms because consumers are really savvy and they are understanding the majority of what they're seeing now, whether it's from like a fake brand or it's a fake review, or they're seeing a picture even on, you know, a website that looks like a Dyson product. I ordered a Dyson hair wrap from a Google search on a Shopify store. It showed up and it was a fake product. And I only found out actually because it broke and I took it to the Dyson store and they were like, we have to confiscate this. It's fake. And I was like, I spent like $500. Yeah. So trusted sources are becoming more like people just need it and you can't trust an AI to do it. And so people are trusting creators. A few quick stats for you though on that. So 91% of Gen Z say that they go to creators for trends. 74% say that they rely on creators to guide their purchases. That's part of a Northwestern study that we did this past year. We partner with them often. But I just thought that that's really interesting that of an entire generation, easily the vast majority say, I need a human to guide me to the right product today.
I am curious, you know, and this is kind of a nuts and bolts of the business, but walk me through how LTK makes money, because you make money, you know, working with creators and with brands. There's, you know, I'm guessing like some kind of affiliate structure, but tell me exactly how it works.
Our mission from day one has always been the same, and that's make creators as economically successful as possible. We want to create ways for them to organically monetize their content so that they can provide for themselves and their families. I think it's almost about 400 creators now are LTK millionaires on the platform, and that's a metric that we look at constantly to understand how we're successful there. That said, unless the brand is successful, the creator's not getting paid. So we have another side of our platform, which is, of course, the brand side where we provide those brand tools. So when you look at the monetization structure, our incentives are actually aligned with the whole ecosystem, which I think has been a really powerful driver because really the creator wants to create amazing content that resonates. When that content does resonate, their customer is making a purchase. In that case, the brand is then paying a commission or transaction fee on that person. So think about it like a distributed sales force. If you go in Sephora, maybe somebody's getting a commission. If you go to me online and you buy the lip gloss from me, I'm going to get a commission. So that's one piece of the business. The other half is when brands come in to the brand platform and they say, hey, I actually am launching that new lip gloss and I want to make sure everyone talks about it. And so they are finding creators, discovering them, having them do paid collaborations. The creator can accept that platform or not. They're being paid a flat fee to talk about the product. There's a lot of ways that a creator can get paid, you know, whether it's content licensing, social media boosting, like there's tons of products underneath that. But if you want to think of it in like two core ways, it's really the transaction revenue and then the campaigns or the collaborations. Brands today have spent over $3 billion on LTK creators through the LTK platform.
You know, some of what people might say are your competitors obviously use kind of affiliate link marketing for the most part. How is LTK different from that?
Yeah. Our studies are showing that it's actually grown from over the last several years from like 700 influencer marketing platforms to now almost, I think it's 11,000. Wow. So these are operating businesses with real teams. So there's a lot that's out there. I think the two core categories that I'm seeing really are platforms who scrape social media and then become a database for search for brands to be able to maybe find and identify creators. These platforms largely don't have a relationship with the creator, but they can help you identify a creator. creator. They might be able to provide some contact information, but they themselves don't have contact with that person. So you have that category of product. There's also a lot in the affiliate space. And so there are both affiliate marketing platforms. They started out like as the tracking technology and then have now expanded into creator marketing, like as a customer. And, you see a lot of like shops, for example, like, hey, you can set up your storefront. Like that type of stuff tends to go sort of hand in hand with what you see in the affiliate space. I think the problem there is they're chasing LTK, but they don't understand, I think, like our vision and our understanding of what's happening. So we've created actually a whole platform where creators set up and run their business. And it's everything from content creation and distribution, even through partnerships, and then on through monetization, CRM, all that is automated. Like there's a really rich technology stack that doesn't meet the consumer eye, right? And then the consumer distribution piece, 40 million consumers, it's about 38% of millennial and Gen Z women are actually using LTK right now. So you have LTK in kind of a category of its own, pursuing a vision to be the creator app in the same way that LinkedIn, for example, is the professional app or Strava is the running app. This other category that we're talking about that often references LTK, I think I've seen that they've used our pitch decks and other things like that to try and like leverage the success of our platform, is those businesses are actually built on the premise that a creator can use a link in social media. Because what they're doing is they are a link generator, like a link provider.
Yeah.
But as a marketer, you want to leverage a creator who's able to reach their audience, right? So in January of this year, Adam Mosseri came out and said, hey, stories, they're not a distribution point. They're for friends who are friends in real life and know each other. Well, everything he says comes true, right? And so we should fully expect for the degradation of story reach even further than it already is. So if you're a brand marketer, it's not great news if you are working with a platform that's just providing links, right? Because then those creators ultimately don't have a way to or place to use those links. And then let's say that you have set up like a creator storefront. You've taken it a step further. Maybe you're a link in bio. That also assumes that you're going to be able to get to that creator's bio. If you go in and search my name, if you search Amber Venz Box on Instagram, it actually doesn't show you my account. It shows you photos of me. Like there are a lot of steps to even get there. And then you as one of my followers would have to remember to like, hey, go search for me. So there's a lot that is broken down over the last year in that model specifically. But look, it's a really crowded space, but it's worth the time, I think, to kind of break down like the categories of sort of what you're seeing. In the LTK space, I mentioned Strava. I think there's other platforms that are scaling and scaling quickly that are actually providing home base to creators, but that's wholly separate from the quote influencer marketing platforms and wholly separate from the like storefront affiliate type of platform.
You all, speaking of kind of the scale, received a ton of money from SoftBank. Are you profitable?
Yes. So we're really unique for a SoftBank investment. My husband and I started the business
in terms
after
of being profitable.
Well, in terms of a lot of things, actually. So we'd been dating 2.5 years when we started the business. We self-funded it, and then it has remained within our family. And we still both operate it. So I'm the president. He's the CEO of the company. So 10 years in, we decided to give basically some relief to some of our shareholders. And so we were a profitable business. We were already making distributions. We are family owned. And what SoftBank allowed us to do is not only give some reward to people who'd been with us for about 10 years, but really also run our roadmap forward. And so at the time we had about 300 employees. We were very clear vision on where we wanted to go. We grew to about 800 employees and were able to run those roadmaps forward across consumer, creator, and brand. And since that time, we've more than doubled the business. And yes, our EBITDA positive, we remain so today. What was unique about that was we were making distributions and EBITDA positive. We were family owned. We had taken, I think, like $10 to $15 million Series A, like many, many years prior. And we're the largest single female North American investment SoftBank has ever made. So unique case all around. And they've been wonderful partners, helped us to see around corners, great advocates, and we were able to just get to where we are much faster.
You talked a little bit about Adam Mosseri's statements about AI generated content coming up on Instagram more often. How do you think about incorporating AI and machine learning into LTK?
So it's going to be a table stakes underpinning of everything about our lives. And I'm honestly a huge AI user and advocate. I probably am on my AI apps, multiple times a day. I really love ChatGPT. Our team uses a suite of like 20 different actually AI companies and products to be more efficient. whether it's from legal to design to everything else. I use ChatGPT just personally, and I have the toggle off, so nothing I say goes into the model, because that's wild. But I find it makes me more efficient and sharpens my thoughts. And for LTK, though, backing up to that, we think that our creators being humans is their superpower, but we can make them more efficient, right? And so it's being used actually across all of our services. So for our creators, we're actually announcing today, right now at Upfronts in New York, we'll be releasing AI music. So this is music that's actually custom created to the videos and content that our creators have made. It's everything from that to pre-tagging their content with what we think is tagged inside of it. The CRM for our creators on our platform is totally AI automated. So they don't have to do anything. We're sending right message to the right customer at the right time. So think about like, I love J.Crew. Let's say, for example, J.Crew. So if I put something in my cart and walk away, like I'm going to be chased around the internet and everywhere else in order to like convert. Those are plugins that you can license, right? And so like as a retailer, we give those for free to our creators. So without lifting a finger, we actually sent over 1 billion notifications last year on behalf of our creators to their customers. And that's things like, hey, that jacket that you saved just had a price drop, or Amber just sent a chat about a code to Orbe, or check out this video that's trending. Anything to bring them back to the platform. That's creator side. On the brand side, we're building their campaigns for them with the right creators. We actually found that the vast majority of creators we are recommending for them now based on AI, they've actually never worked with before, which is, I think, really exciting because it fully democratizes and makes LTK into a true meritocracy, which is what I want. And then when you look at the consumer side, I would really probably point to search. So search is actually the number 2 feature on the LTK app. People come to it like they come to Pinterest, and they're searching for anything from Italian vacation to double stroller or keto chocolate. And we're actually then personalizing that search for them based on kind of their preferences, but there's other personalization elements, but it's a non-negotiable at this point, and it's just making all of our customers more efficient.
In terms of, you mentioned brands matching with content creators and the fact that so many of them are now through your algorithm matching with totally new ones. For a long time, and I want to say this really peaked 2 years ago, everybody was talking about micro-influencers. And I guess I'm curious, what is the best kind of creator for a brand to partner with? Is it like a massive creator that has a ton of following? Is it a hyper-specific one? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, so for most of our brands, they're coming in and they're telling us what their goals are. And then it's a total mix of like who needs to come together to make that campaign holistically efficient. Because ultimately, brands are looking at ROI in a number of different ways, whether that's including earned media value, or they have their own calculations they're looking at, or they're valuing new customers differently. Like there's so many things about it. It really comes down to the performance of that creator across whatever metrics are important to that brand. So for example, actually brands on LTK, they've spent 5 times as much this year on branding and awareness. So things will continue to kind of like shift. And I think as more data is available, they're able to make better decisions about who to cast for those things. But we have creators with, call it 30,000 social media followers who are in our top 50 and are making, more than $5 million a year on LTK. Social following is almost irrelevant, which is wild to say, but it truly is. Today, it's the daily reachable audience, and that's what we make available to brands to let that brand understand, like, who can they actually touch when they're doing this campaign, and what do those results typically look like, and how can we cast and price the creators that are going to drive the outcomes that you need? Because ultimately, that's how we keep the business and grow the industry.
On the back end for both brands and creators, what kind of information do you provide them, and what kind of information do you withhold? Do they have access to their sort of email list of people who've purchased things, or tell me about that?
There's a couple things happening in the app. Like I said, we're wholly different in the industry. And so just to like sort of build it for you with concepts that exist. So think of it as like if Shopify, WordPress, TikTok, and Salesforce had a child, like that is what LTK is for a creator. So the types of information we're giving them is everything from community information through to retail information, like what are they clicking, saving, buying, all of that, and pretty much in real depth. I think of it less about like what are we withholding, but what have we had time to launch and make reasonably digestible for the end customer. So we're constantly adding to that, but we've started with the things that we think are most important in driving their business and helping them to make better decisions. And then, by the way, AI is building a lot of that in. So, for example, let's say today that I have on my Varley shorts. We're actually not only saying, hey, Amber, I see you have your Varley shorts on, but hey, did you know Saks is actually paying the most on Varley right now? And let's go ahead and make sure you flip it there. Or your conversion rate on Varley Direct is higher than any other retailer with those products. So let's be sure that we do that. And that's all running in the background, and that's all through AI. So there's a lot more that's happening like on their behalf, because ultimately with the creator, we want to just get them to creating content, which is their core competency. And then hopefully everything else is run automatically in the background.
And, in your brand contract, do you pursue exclusive partnerships with some of them? Same with creators, or not really? You let them use kind of any platform in addition to LTK?
LTK is really a at-will platform. So you choose it, you choose to build your business there, and then you can do whatever you would like to do otherwise. I think for many creators, they focus their attention there because they know that they have to pretty urgently get the followers that they do have and the reach they do have off of social media and into a safe, reachable place. I think for that reason that they're choosing LTK, but they have, free will to do whatever they'd like. On the brand side, many brands do choose LTK exclusively. So for example, Target has their retail media network. They have Roundel. You can see on their LinkedIn, they've chosen LTK to fully power and run the Roundel program. And they've promoted that. And, a brand's annual commitment can actually all run through LTK and count towards what they're committed to do with Target. And so you have brands who are choosing LTK to run their program. Just this morning, Nordstrom said that I could share because I went on their podcast with Pete Nordstrom and I was like, hey guys, in the last 30 days, you have 10,000 active creators, promoting your product. I think the scale that we're able to achieve for them, and we weren't just first to market, but we continue to be the innovator that many brands do choose us, but they're free to do whatever they'd like to do.
Last question. Who are your favorite creators?
Oh.
And on what platforms?
Okay, yeah. Well, I will say I spend a lot of time, obviously, on LTK. I get on social media probably for maybe beauty tips. I mean, I would like to know what's happening with Anne Hathaway and with Lindsay Lohan. ChatGPT is not telling me the answer, and I've not yet cracked the code on social media. And a lot of times I'll look at news and business. Actually, now on Instagram, I know people use that differently. On LTK, I definitely have a group of creators that I love. NP Miranda, so NP.Miranda, so she's a nurse practitioner, but she gives the most amazing beauty advice on LTK. Nina Evans, she has both a professional look, but it's also the type of stuff that you can wear. It's very sporty.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Valeria, I'm going to mispronounce her last name. Lipetes. Okay. Litovettsky. She's in Miami. She's a lot of fun and totally hilarious, but also dresses well. Sincerely Jules. Let's see. Styled by MG. I really like. Julia Berolsheimer, I think, has some cool, I'll find some good stuff. And then Ariel Sharness, I do like. See what's going. Yeah. That's my list.
Yeah.
Right
that's
now.
a good
There's a lot more. Yeah. Yeah, there's a ton. If you connect, actually, so 38% of Gen Z and millennial women use LTK. So if you connect your phone book, there's a likelihood that you can actually see who your friends follow and then get some good tips.
I actually don't use LTK. I mean, I've clicked through to influencers' pages to see some stuff, but I've never actually set up a profile, done the whole thing. So maybe that's...
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, this is your challenge. It's free app, top on the App Store. And what's interesting? So sitting with Apple, they'll give us feedback on the app. And one of the things that they really love lately about it is actually the control, which I thought was so interesting. Because they're you mean you can actually follow people and it's just who you follow? And you're showing me all of their content. We're yes. They're this is amazing. Draw this out. Which
you're not spamming people. Yeah.
No, you have complete control over it. You open it and there's real confidence that you're not going to be slammed in the face with something that you weren't expecting. There are discovery surfaces that are wonderful. That the second reason people use the app is actually the discover, because it's just a high trust environment and they're able to find what they're looking for. But yes, your challenge is to download the app and connect your phone book and see who to follow.
Will you ever, and I know you said no, but I got to ask you this properly, allow an AI influencer on the platform?
We're not. Okay. We really the human promise is, we think, so important. And there's been a lot of articles that have come out actually about AI creators. They can gain following.
Yeah.
And they look so real, right? But ultimately, we just think that there's a lack of trust. They're not going to know that something ships fast, or how it fits you, or what restaurant to try. It's, again, it goes back to that. It becomes an ad, right? Because anything they're going to be doing in that context is going to be because they're paid or told to by someone. So we are not. We'll remain a human app, but it will be powered by AI. And the music might be created by AI, but the person that you're talking to and conversing with and chatting with and all that is a real person.
I am excited to listen to the music. To me, I feel like the vibe of AI music is like, do you watch Selling Sunset? Like the weird Selling Sunset songs.
I know exactly what you're
Play
talking.
between segments where you're like, what?
There is some weird AI music out there for sure.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time vetting. And actually, it's funny because I let my kids test some of the stuff too. And it'd be pretty funny, some of the stuff they created. But there are definitely, there's some great stuff that we feel confident with in the app. And so we're announcing it today. It will launch soon. But that kind of like layer we think helps to make the content, unique and personalized, but you're still looking at and talking to a real person.
A person. Yeah. All right. Well, I will follow you because I know you're also an influencer in your own right. But this was great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. No, happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
Okay, we are back with Casey, and it's time to wrap up the show with Keeping Tabs. This is where each of us shares a story, trend, or piece of pop culture we're following right now. And Casey, since you're our guest, what are you keeping tabs on?
Well, so I'm a huge Chappell Roan fan. I have loved her since her album came out. I had a chance to see her last year, and she's been performing this song at all of her live shows called The Subway. It's a beautiful song, but it has not yet been released on Spotify or anywhere else for me to listen to. She did just put out a new song called The Giver, which is amazing. But the thing I'm keeping tabs on is when am I going to get The Subway on Spotify?
What did you think of her Met Gala look? Me and Salazar were very divided on it.
I mean, she has like so many incredible looks. Like, I think it was like very cool. I think she looked very beautiful. I don't know if I would put it in like my top 5 Chappell looks ever, but she seemed like she was having a good time.
I need to look up this look now just so I can see it.
I think she picked a cool tailor, but then she looked, I don't know, my thing with Chappell.
I like it. It's on brand. It's on brand for her.
This, I feel like I'm going to get a lot of hate for, but I feel like Chappell's music is so good, and every time she like says something that's not music, I'm like, shh.
She's had some rough interviews. She was on Las Culturistas recently, and that was a good. No, I thought that was a pretty good one. Yeah, I don't know. She's 26 and super rich and famous. I don't expect much great political
here's
opinions.
The thing. To me, she's an artist with a capital A, and we should make the space for her to do her art, and we should not be asking her about her politics because expecting our celebrities to dictate our politics is like how we got into this mess in the first place.
Yeah.
No, but it's but sometimes it's not even political. She's just like, I actually hate my fans, and you're like, okay, whatever.
On the other side of that, Pink
she
Pony
did not
Club
say
gets
that. How
stuck in
dare
my-
you? Spreading misinformation over here.
Anyway, Josh, what are you keeping tabs on?
I'm keeping tabs on. So this hasn't aired yet, but we do have a good interview coming out in a few weeks with Frances Berwick from NBC Universal and the chairman of Bravo. But I need to talk about, because we got to talk about it with her. They're releasing a new Real Housewives franchise, and it's the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, which is where I'm from. And I could not be more excited for the Real Housewives of Rhode Island.
I thought you were going to bring up the fact that New York got canceled.
I know, that I am sad about. I did like Real Housewives of New York with the new cast. But Real Housewives of Rhode Island will fill that void in my heart. So that's what I'm excited about, mostly because apparently they shoot a lot at a beach club in Rhode Island. And there's 2 very popular beach clubs. One's called the Dunes Clubs. One's called Bonnet Shores Beach Club. I worked at Bonnet Shores Beach Club in the summers while I was in college at the University of Rhode Island. So I hope so much that they shoot at Bonnet Shores Beach Club. That would make my day. Yaz, what are you keeping tabs on?
So there's this new Apple TV show called Your Friends and Neighbors starring John Hamm, which I think is pretty fun. It's about like a hedge fund guy who lives in like clearly like Greenwich, Connecticut or something. Casey, you're nodding. Are you watching it too?
I've seen it. Yeah.
How are you hearing about Apple TV Plus shows? Because I think that's the hardest thing, is just to find what they are if they're not named Ted Lasso or Severance.
Well, that's the thing, is like they got me with Severance, and then I kept going back, and then they have a show The Studio, which I started watching. And then I saw there was a new John Hamm show, which I was like, I should watch this.
Yeah, Your Friends and Neighbors is okay, but it also made me realize how broken my brain is, because I was talking about this with my husband. We were listening to the Prestige Junkie podcast from The Ringer, and they were like, the premise is John Hamm is a hedge funder who loses his job and then starts stealing from his friends and neighbors to keep up his lifestyle. And so his daughter gets to go to Princeton.
Oh, okay.
And
So slice of life realism.
Well, so what I mean is, like, me and my husband both grew up in, like, pressure cooker towns and went to fancy high schools, and both of us were like, this guy's so sympathetic, like, doing what you gotta do. And then on the podcast, they were like, fuck this guy, horrible person. And I was like, no, they're right. Like, this is bad.
Something, broke your Ivy League brands.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh no.
You gotta be with the salt of the earth people like me. State school, baby.
I'm revealing myself to be a huge asshole. So that's my keeping tabs this week.
That's great. That's a good place to end the show. Casey, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for Most Innovative Companies. Casey, thank you for joining us. Our show is produced by Avery Miles and Blake Odom, with help from Sam Kabauer and Hawa Atori. Editing by Matt Toder, mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres, and our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Remember again to subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.